My question to you is, do you think that we have created an environment that is conducive to gameplay or a lot of bullshit?
It's very difficult for me to tell the difference this early.
Let's circle back to the planning stage. So
Okay.
I think we have 3 really interesting points of entry and 3 kind of weaknesses to exploit within this casino. There's the technical side, there's the kind of, and let's call the paramilitary side just all staff too. So this guy, the colonel, runs the whole operation. He's Sam from Casino in that, like, he is a micromanager who does like everything. So he's like in charge of the kitchen staff, he's in charge of security, he's in charge of the bellhops, all that stuff.
That makes it less complicated, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the social side, which is the religious side, which is going through the prophet.
Yeah.
So with our, first of all, how do we impart that information to players at the start? Because I think it'd be good that this isn't something that they learn by talking to people.
No, it's the interesting thing about one-shots, right? Like, in a perfect world, this is just stuff that they already know. Like, as a DM, if you know you're going to do a one-shot in 3 sessions' time, you kind of want to just already be building into this about how there is this church that, like, the way I would introduce a group like this is, because they're evil.
What were you rolling for? Whether you were going to interrupt Dave? Tell him he's wasting our fucking time.
No, but like, I was going to say, if you introduce an evil group, the way you introduce them is by them doing something good. So, for instance, in the session beforehand, you see a lot of like poor kids, and they're handing out, the social guy of this group is just handing out bread from the church.
But there's poo in the bread.
Paid for by the casino. It can just be bread. Because it's enough for them to go like,
really poo in bread.
maybe some people in this world like these guys, because now you've got the moral quandary.
Great. Okay, cool.
But we can't do that because it's a one-shot, right? You need it faster. Is that what you were saying?
No, I was saying that you know you've got a one-shot coming up. You just set it up.
Okay.
But you also want this to be standalone too. You want this to just be, you can get your chums around.
But you also don't want...
You can get your chums
You
around?
can get your chums around and go, guys, we're playing this thing. I saw it on stream.
Why does it sound so filthy when you say it? I get my chums around that.
Chums around it.
Of the family of the little guy hires you, right? So can you just start it with like, your gentleman thief comes to you saying, like, I've got a job, also just got out of prison, and it's my one last job.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I think it's really
Get all this
Right.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a good way to do that without it, being an info dump or whatever.
Yeah, great. So it's a classic tavern setup.
Yeah.
Or because, of where we're setting it, could be a nice cocktail bar.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh yeah, that's a heist thing, right?
A juice bar.
what, in the 60s? Are you mad?
They had juice.
No. It was water and booze.
Oh dang.
And Coca-Cola.
I didn't realize it was set in the 60s. I knew it was D20 modern.
I
Is
like
it set in the 60s?
I'd set it in the 60s. But again, like this
What
stuff.
country?
No phones.
Yeah, no phones.
Yeah, that makes,
Oh,
no phones is so much better for narrative.
Oh, no phones is so important to like a lot of genres here. For
Phones
me.
fuck everything up. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
And you
phones.
can
Horror,
have
same thing.
interesting tech too. Like they still have surveillance and stuff.
Interesting texts.
Tech.
You can have interesting texts on your non-phones.
Here's a fun fact.
It's a bird that bring you a letter. Do you guys ever do that bongo thing on your phone where you'd be like, this is my friend's name, what do you know about them? And they'd be like, they're Italian. No?
What?
Remember when you would text and you'd be like, Kate, you'd be like, Kate, like for
Oh, is
example.
this one of those things that cost like $9?
Yeah, and you would be like, Amy Winter, and they'd be like, she's a slut, and you'd be like, I knew it, or whatever.
I remember that you had 2 games you used to play. There was that brief period before the internet was on our phones, but like Optus had that helpline that you could call and they would answer any question for you.
That's right.
And I remember 2 things, because you would get drunk and you would want to call these numbers. And I was with you one night and you were like, here's everything I have in my fridge. What's something I can make that'll be amazing? And then it was like, I have 1 half-empty Coca-Cola, a beer, and some tomato sauce. And I'm like, okay, I can't help you.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you would do is you would you would get people to just like Google spooky stories by like pretending you didn't know what they were, because you were trying to scare the guy on the other end of the line.
Ben, that is so funny and psychotic.
I've just spent a lot of time at the
fuck?
Dilatov Pass and my friends disappeared.
Jesus Christ.
Is there any reason you would know why that might be the case?
Yeah.
I once, just through like basically not really cold calling, but going through the phone book, met I think the funniest person I've ever met in my life by going to the very, very, very last number of the phone book in Adelaide, and I think I was in like year 8 or something.
Such a good idea.
And went to the very, very last number, and it was just like someone's name, and it was like ZZZYYXXXYYZZZ. And I was like, what the fuck? And me and my friend Matt, I was like, I'm calling this person. And called them and was like, hi. And he was like, what? And I was like,
Yes.
how do you say your name? And he said, fuck, he said, okay.
That's so there are other demis in the world.
Okay, I'll say it, but I can only say it once. And I was like, okay. And he went, and hung up. Like, the funniest person I've ever met. He just planted a seed that maybe a couple people have followed. It was so magical.
That is incredible.
It was awesome.
Let's talk about encounters, because I feel like we're getting to the point where we can actually
yeah.
start kind of mapping this out. So I like Ali's idea that the adventure will open with you being hired by this guy who had a very unlucky child, left the family, joined a cult, and now he's being held kind of brainwashed prisoner in this casino.
Are they tiny as well? Are they fairies?
No, what do you reckon?
Is he maybe just, or is he just an anomaly? I have a friend who just,
It's a little guy.
yeah, he's just a little guy, and him and his sister are the only 2 people in the world with the same syndrome as him, and it got named after her because she was born first.
Ah.
Yeah,
That sucks.
it's rough. It's really rough. If you want to look up Rima syndrome, that's my friend's name is Aman, and
Oh, it's Aman.
yeah, it's,
I
yeah.
was like, I wonder if it's Aman.
Yeah, it's Aman, but the whole thing is just like, they were like, oh yeah, there's nothing different about you, you're just little.
Huh.
And he was like, oh, okay. And they're like, and we're going to name it after your sister because she was born a year earlier.
And she's slightly taller.
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters one way or the other what the family's like, but I think that they are hiring you, and I think that they have this information, right? That these are the 3, like they've done their own research, but they can't carry it out. Do we want an NPC who's kind of like, as you say, like a gentleman thief who's going to kind of bring it all together, or do we want all the kind of agency to be with our party?
It would be nice if there was a special skill that's required for this heist that they don't have, even if it's just navigating the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like he one of the cult people that got out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
someone who went on
he's
Rumspringa and never came
also kind
back.
of your
Yeah.
inside man because he has knowledge about
That's
how
great.
things
So the
work.
first thing you're going to have to do, because he'll have the map.
Yeah. I think, just
Yeah,
tailor
here's-
him to whatever you need
Yeah.
him to be to
So
make that work.
first encounter will be finding this guy,
Yeah, well, a woman.
or woman. It's 1960. Is finding the ex-cult member.
Who left the church, never came back, but they were meant to be like a protege, and so they had immense access to the
Yeah.
church casino. They were Demi's numero duo.
Okay, so what makes this person interesting? What makes finding this person and getting stuff out of them interesting? Are they slightly unwilling? Has the father or the mother of the little guy tried to contact them?
I'll give you some heist cliches if any of them jump to you. Mm-hmm. Currently in jail.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Retired.
Mm-hmm.
Massively
Currently
conflicted about leaving the church and and is worried that like finding out more about it will bring them back in.
His ex-wife is in the church.
Ooh.
Oh.
We love an ex-wife.
Motive? Yeah, that's good. And the ex-wife is one of our 3 lieutenants.
That's good. She's the colonel.
Yeah.
She's the colonel. That's fine. But that's an interesting kind of like story thing. But from a gameplay thing, we're just going to go to him and get another info dump, aren't we? So we've got to work out.
Well, that's why like things like being in prison is good because then you've actually got an encounter. But if any of these people are conflicted because it's like my wife was there, that's like saying I'll do it with you, but your plan of just get the little guy is not enough because we also have to. I can be a benefit, but if I come with you, I give you another sub-quest, and we have to do it or I'm walking.
Okay, so what's
Yeah.
the sub-quest?
Kill my ex-wife.
Nobody dies! That was like one of the first things I said.
Oh, fuck my ex-wife.
Dack my ex-wife.
Dack my ex-wife.
In front of everyone.
In front of everyone.
Give
and
my
then-
ex-wife bad luck.
Ah.
Little guy makes my ex-wife Just
Because
because
she's signing the divorce papers tomorrow, and I wanted her to accidentally sign a line that says we're married again. It's a romance.
I actually, you know what? I gotta rescue him from thugs. I think he's not in jail. I think he's been kind of guarded by, and it's a good opportunity to meet the cult. Mm-hmm. I think when you get there, the cult's gotten there first.
Yeah, I was thinking fear of the cult is a good reason for this to be kicked off. What?
You've got to kiss my ex-wife.
Yeah.
I get to watch.
I mean, I have to watch.
I like this. When you get there, the cult's gotten there first. So that's like, it's just a combat.
Yeah.
And it explains why he's reticent and conflicted. I like the ex-wife thing, and that she's the colonel. That's great. But there's going to be some combat with some cult heavies.
Yeah, and you learn about the cult, and they're like, in the name of the giant tits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they attack you.
There'll be some combat. Is there any way
A
to...
couple of references to Demi's Edinburgh show.
Edinburgh show, if you need it. It was called Ditch Witch 800.
Okay.
Tits.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. Oh, he is. He's writing it down much louder than the rest of the stuff.
Demi is so badass, the picture of you.
It's so fucking. I'm like reveling in it. I'm finding it hard to interact because it looks so fucking sick. Ugh.
All right, great. That's the first thing you have to do. He's going to give you a map. If you get... There'll be other ways to get the map. We'll build that in. If you kill or hurt a single one of these cult members, he'll have information on it, and that's fine.
This is so small, but I think let's let Pax's suggestion here work. That also that this is set in the modern world, but Demi's character is like weirdly spiritual and is sort of angelic. I really like that because there's that dilemma where you come across a religion, you're like, well, they have concrete proof of a divine ever after.
Yeah.
So what do we have? And so that's why I'm suggesting that Demi's character radiates peace and trust and sincerity, despite how evil she is, and she has wings.
Yep.
Yes.
And huge sooty tits.
Huge sooty tits, and you think, can those wings even take them off the ground? Or...
Okay, so Demi is godlike, and I also think that in the spirit of like the Casino Vegas razzle dazzle style, it's all smoke and mirrors.
It could be, but I would love for the characters to be like...
Oh, totally, yeah. But I mean, like, maybe if it comes to combat, you see the man behind the curtain.
Sure.
Yeah, but then what happens is Demi takes off their fake wings and then unfurls the way bigger wings and way bigger tits, and they're so much dirtier then.
Radiates peace and love.
Good grief. What have I done? Oh, I got caught on my cord then.
Okay,
Sorry.
excellent. So we've got our first encounter. Regardless of which path you go down, that'll be our...
That's the first, yeah.
That's the first encounter.
And is that just combat? Is that what you want?
I think it's combat.
Maybe it's what's fun, just to give it a slight taste from normal straight combat, is that thing where you're like, these are my friends, can you leave? So that you arrive and the person is like, can you leave? I'm with my friends.
Ex-Coldus is like, yeah.
Yeah.
And because they've been told there's a knife to them under the table. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, we're happy here, can you leave? And they're taking the impetus of trying to get you out.
Yeah.
But if you roll perception well and whatever game mechanics you're rolling, wow.
Yeah, she's making the tits bigger.
So we didn't invite you onto this. So
They're not normally like...
Aren't we?
Yeah, I like that. So there's like a little bit of perception there that you have to work out that he's actually being held under duress. Great. Now we have one of three options where we can go through the technical side of things, we can go through the kernel, or we can go and try and social engineer like through the prophet or whatever. Let's come up with an encounter for each of those.
Okay.
I mean, it's more than an encounter because it's like you want it to be an adventure.
Yeah, like a path. Like
Yeah.
Like what's next is what I'm asking.
The one that's most interesting to me is obviously the kind of social engineering one, but like...
Well, let's start with that one, if that's the one that kind of interests us.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the tip there? We know how to do a con, like, that's the fun part, coming up with, okay, I'll pretend to be a donor or a whale or whatever. But, like, what's the kind of, like... And he looks remarkably like you, Agent 47, sort of like...
The turn on it is you can't kind of con it, right? So it's the thing where you're like...
Yes. But, like, is there, like, oh, he's doing a meet and greet in a day, or you know what I mean, like what's the thing that gives us access?
Well, I thought the idea was that if you go in and you actually, this is the thing where you go into the casino and you exhibit a lot of luck, and then you get taken away into a room to, I don't know, bet against the social engineering lieutenant. But then that's the room where the little guy is.
Okay, so all that needs to happen now is that we just need a sliver of information, which is like, if you want access to this person, you have to do X. So like,
Kiss my wife.
like, but and that can be exactly what you described. Like, if you go in there and start fucking winning, then you're gonna meet the prophet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's all our players need to know. That in order to get to the prophet, he only
Which is that, like, we know a guy who said that every now and then, once every few months, there's somebody who's really lucky, and then they get taken into this room, this white room at the back of it, and then after that, they lose all their money and they come out and they're kicked out of the casino. Nobody knows what happens in that room.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you would be told it. So it's a mystery that you've got to kind of...
Yeah.
We're like, well, we want to get into that room and work out what's going on, but we don't want to get fucked up by whatever's in that room.
Oh, fuck. There's
What?
no one going in the vents.
Well, that can be part of the Colonel way in, I think.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
good. It really bothered me.
Also, the
for a
vents
second.
could be the hacker getting past the cameras.
Okay, yeah. No, that's true. Okay.
So the prophet story is... Oh, yes, and Gordian, you're absolutely right.
Just getting bigger all the time.
Getting constantly bigger.
We do need to now talk about how some of the flashback mechanics would work, because that's a big part of it. Let's play it out. Actually, let's work out with this. Let's say that I get that information, and we as a party decide that we're going to dress up like high rollers. We're going to bring loaded dice, which is risky, but we're going to like really try and win to get the attention of the prophet. Mm-hmm. The prophet comes, invites us to the room. The party is split, however. I'm just trying to engineer a point at which I'd be like, I want a flashback now to work out how I plan for this.
So just in terms of me understanding this with my silly brain, what is the main question that asks? Is it like, how do you get them to that point? Like, how do you get them to the crux of,
I guess, like,
how the fuck do we get to this flashback? Or
yeah, in what situation would you use a flashback like this? Like, the prophet turns up and he says, like, yeah.
I would say, see, that's the thing. Yeah.
The mechanics don't make so much sense. So they're more obvious than the other approaches, right? Because, for instance, you go in, let's say you're going the paramilitary road, right?
Yep.
You go in, you sneak around, you knock out the guards at the back door, you creep in through the back door, and then the alarm goes off. That's the moment when you go,
yes.
the alarm goes off, what was your plan for that? And that's when you go,
And do they have unlimited ones of those? Or
I don't
do you
think
have
so.
flashback tokens at the start of the game?
I wouldn't even say 3. It depends. I mean, if it's literally just a one shot, I'd say you've got fucking 1, maybe
Each
2.
player has one opportunity to...
I would
Because
think
then you
so.
can go, I'll wear it. Like, we'll just do it on the
Well,
fly.
exactly. That was what I was going to say. Either you use it there and you do your flashback, or you get into fucking more trouble.
And do you have to play your flashback? I feel like you do. Otherwise, it's just like, well, in my
you
flashback, I snipped the alarm last night.
Yeah, you play your flashback, and then depending on how convincing you are, you either get like advantage or disadvantage, or just or you just.
I think
roll.
you have to roll
Does
at
that
the
make
end
sense?
of your... So it's like anything. It's like, how do you convince them? All right, based on that, here's your difficulty check for your persuasion roll. So you go, well, here's my plan. Actually, before we did this, we went into a thing and we burnt off our fingerprints on a globe, and none of us have fingerprints, so we didn't leave spots on the wall, and it's a false positive.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, that's pretty brutal, and you that's going to last you for the rest of this adventure. So that's a DC 15, and then you roll it.
Yeah.
I think it's that. Does that make sense to you, Mel?
Vaguely?
Sort of. I think I was because my thinking of it was like, depending on how sort of convincing or creative you are, you kind of like, they're like, okay, well then I guess luck's on your, well, not really luck, but like planning is on your side in the moment.
Because it's also a heist, and because everybody's meant to succeed in a heist so much, even in the face of overwhelming complication.
True.
Maybe also everybody has one gold token, which is like, you can say something stupid and it's true. So like you can, so you normally get to roll for a piece of preparation.
Yeah.
But you can have one piece of preparation where you can go like, I taught a golf ball to speak.
Yeah.
And I threw the golf ball down the stairs, and he went, oh, it's me, I'm the prisoner. And they all chased the golf ball. Because
Yeah.
he's little, like the little guy.
He's a little like that little guy, and he sounds little.
It took
He's
me
a dimpled
6
egg.
months to teach a golf ball to speak. First 2 months, golf ball wouldn't even read. It could make sound.
I don't know how relevant this is, but it feels like in a heist, there's when you have to do that like social engineering thing. There's always a moment where the guy asks you a question to like verify your identity.
Yes.
Like in Ocean's 11, it's like do you work with this guy? And he's like, not since you died last year. Like that kind of moment always happens. So maybe there's like a quiz, like a testing machine for answers moment.
That's a really good point.
That's also that there is a beautiful heist movie thing that you just said, Ali, which I really love, which is when somebody tests you and then you double the test. It's like, oh, yeah, so you work with us. You must know Mickey. I guess he would have told you about this. And it's like, Mickey wouldn't say anything because we all know he's a mute.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I think that like this is the whole like this flashback mechanic, and I do think we're right to limit it. Because I also do want there to be some degree of planning beforehand, like the skeleton of a plan, and then there's the moment where once in the entire one shot, a character can say, "I had a plan for this."
Yeah.
And like, actually, Dave, I planned for this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, great. What did you do? And then it's basically up to the GM how difficult they want to make it. Talking golf ball, talking golf ball to, I looked up the schematics of this, blah blah blah, and it's like it's a bit of fun between the GM and the player to like pick holes in what they said they did. Yeah. I
like to think of it as the sort of the trajectory between like the Eden and the Michael Hing, where Michael Hing has completely gamified it because he's looked up every casino, and Eden has been like, I've got a bigger hand on the left than on the right.
This guy's my cousin.
It would also be nice if people could get benefits in the game from pre-planning stuff as well, I would say. So it would be really nice if there was a period, and I know we talked about like not being too bogged down at the beginning, but it would be really nice to be like, if there's a security system, I do this. If there's a password, before we do this, is there anybody who could teach me how to pick locks? You know what I mean?
And I think that from a GM point of view, and having that NPC as the ex-cultist, that is perfect once you have that person on side where you can do a little bit of planning and you can have a stack of information. But it's not just an info dump. It's like a fun, well, I think it would be fun for players to be like, well, tell me about the fucking air vents and like who takes out the garbage and like.
So how does that work? And who takes out the garbage? If you're DMing it.
Yeah, well, it'd be like, well, it's like one drop per day. It goes into it goes into this room off to the side of the casino, and then they bring the empty bins in.
So they open the doors and they take bins in.
Yeah. And it's like this one guy.
Who checks the bins?
That's the thing. Nobody checks the bins. Because the guy who's doing it actually hates his job and and just really fucking half-asses it.
Why? Why is he half-assed about it?
Well, because he's going through a divorce at the moment.
Okay, who's his wife? His ex-wife?
His ex-wife's Tabitha.
How does she feel about the divorce?
Well, she actually wants him to keep working for the alimony.
Okay. What about the divorce lawyer?
Now, the divorce lawyer is interesting because he is of the cult, but also has other clients.
Well, this is interesting because he would have access.
Yeah, he would have access.
So I think you can do that. I think you can, that one you could just be like, well, we'll just hide in the bins.
That was literally the first place that my brain went was I'm going to get in the bin no matter what. I think that's...
Yeah, I think that works.
I think, the other way that you can do it as well is just be like, you can just have like a genre of amount of prepared that you are. Be like, I have a rope and a little computer, and this is how I'm going to use it when it comes up. And you just decide, once the situation comes up, you're like, I prepared for this because I have my rope and my little computer.
Yeah, and I'm going to mash them all together.
Yeah.
I think if you have like a timed, and that's the discretion of the GM, like a timed planning session.
Have you ever played the game? We've played too much D&D. I did a thing once which I got from another non-D&D thing which I really liked, which is you take a jar and you put it in the center of the table and you fill it with a handful of tokens, right? Like 10 to 15 tokens. And then someone's just like, well, I want to go to a lockpicking course. And you're like, that will take a lot of time. And they're like, okay. And then you take out 4 tokens from it. and then they're like, oh, okay, I want to go and talk to the guy who runs the bins, and that takes a token.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they can see how many tokens there are, and you don't even need to say what happens, but a huge complication happens when it runs out of tokens. So maybe you finish the tokens, and suddenly it's like, you're being tailed because Big Ted Demi has worked out that there are people in the town who are interested in lockpicking and all this stuff, and now she sent people to...
Great.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
there's another group of guys.
Go on! There's another Heist group, and they're even littler.
Oh, they're way smaller.
No, I like that idea. I think if you can gamify prep so it's not just a chat,
Yeah.
that's really, really good. Because I really want there to be like a discrete period of time where you can be like, I'm trying to lay the foundations as much as humanly possible.
But you don't want it to feel like you can do it forever.
Exactly.
That's what
yeah.
that's really good for.
Yeah.
Okay,
You can
great.
battle royale it. And
So
just
what?
be like,
So what's the dilemma that happens when they run out of tokens?
Well, is it time or is it attention?
I like it as heat. Yeah, I think heat is really
Yeah.
good.
Heat's good.
Because everything you do, if you the dumbest thing in D&D is this idea that the bad guys are monoliths who are waiting for you to attack them. I think bad guys are much more interesting
When they don't have any idea.
Well, no, I was going to say when the more things you do are in their periphery to prepare, they go, hang on, who are these fuckwits that are...
Yeah.
If you're Strahd, you're like, who are these people that are buying up garlic and crosses? They're probably a problem.
Yeah. Okay, well,
and
it's
like
heat then.
foreskin stretching classes.
I think then it just goes up a difficulty level, right?
Yeah,
Like-
the heat, Leah, there's heat level.
If you empty the jar, then what you're about to do becomes incredibly difficult.
Yeah, but that would be fun
Yeah.
if you get like 4 levels of defense. The basic level is the cult has normal security.
Yeah,
But then when
exactly.
they get to heat level 1, then the hacker lieutenant convinces the boss to put in infrared heat scanner
Yeah.
cameras everywhere, and you get to level 2, the paramilitary guy can bring in new mercenaries who have sniper rifles.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a game.
Yeah.
So you can do it unprepared, and it will potentially be easier.
Yeah. But the more preparation you do, there are these big moments where it gets harder.
Yeah.
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 Oh, we should say, sorry, yeah, Straight the Pirate's absolutely right. Heart of Pack is streaming what she's doing here with, I think, with our audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At / Heart of Pack.
And really doing
or
some...
maybe without our audio, just grimly and silently. Yeah, and when we finish the stream as well, Pack's going to keep on streaming, so we're going to raid Pack. So after this, you should keep following.
Yeah, because I hear
Listening,
she's...
all right, thank God.
Listening, right.
Because that would be psycho. That would be absolutely insane.
Apropos
Otherwise.
of nothing. That's clearly me.
Hope Fox just made a very good point, and I love it. If the jar empties, then the GM gets their own flashback.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
They get to do it at least once.
And tailor it to the
So it's like we get to the vault and we use the lockpicking thing, and it's like, well, I planned for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of the locks are electrically charged and you're electrocuted.
Yeah.
Yes.
And an alarm has gone off.
That's the revenge of the GM, and that actually really balances things out. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like the mechanics we have here. So let's we've got 3 things happening that make this, I think, kind of interesting technical one shot. One of them becomes more relevant as the game goes on, which is the luck and how that affects your rolls the closer you get to the little guy. The other one is
Fucking Steve.
So funny that it's a little guy.
the other
That was
one.
you did that.
Because
Sorry.
it was just something you said 2 hours ago, and now it's here.
Like, no, that's what it is. Sorry.
The other one is this kind of thing that we just come up with a planning stage, where you can sort of spend tokens to sort of learn more about what's about to happen. I mean, like, I've referenced it a couple of times tonight, but I kind of think that playing this game well and GMing it well should give your players a kind of Hitman-y feel.
Yeah.
Like that you there's almost like a kind of a godlike feeling of kind of understanding where everything is.
Well,
and-
the
Yeah,
weird thing about
Yeah.
Hitman, which I always find difficult, which is that the best trick about Hitman is that it's a death loop game, even though it doesn't act like that's part of the story.
Yeah.
Hitman is not exciting until you've done it 5 times, and you're like, the butler always goes left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you going to make that happen in this?
Well, I think that you can't get quite that level of kind of Groundhog Day satisfaction of Bill Murray's dream run, but like I think you can.
That time that Bill Murray tried to kill Punxsutawney Phil and make it look like an accident.
But I think you can get at least some of that by knowing guard routes and security camera blind spots and like.
And you learn all this by talking to your source?
Oh, well, I think by spending tokens and like.
And doing your flashbacks.
Yeah, it's researching.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. The flashback thing, which is so anti-D&D, which you need to realize is you can always spend tokens in the center of the table to basically reject anything the DM says. And with the option that every time the DM runs out, they can make something so much worse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so they're like, somebody. Yeah,
Also-
the waiter turns around and says, "You're not supposed to be here," and it's like, but you see, a week ago, I sent in all of my credentials and said that I was an inspector here to check the pipes.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, that's 2 tokens. Oh, you are meant to be here right this way, sir, but you're working your way towards.
Toward-
Yeah.
Everybody getting electrocuted from the locks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I feel like this is like the sort of game that could.
It's not D&D anymore, but I like it.
It's not D&D, and I feel like it's the sort of game that can cause a lot of fights.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like the way that we would play it is just we know each other and we know what's broadly
The more
fair and
you
what's
cook,
not.
The better your life.
That's the slogan of this game system. Thank you, Krung.
Fuck.
Do you reckon if Bill Murray, do you reckon in those periods where he was like going through and the bits we didn't see in the film where it like jumps forward, do you reckon he did a version where he worked out how to kill every person amongst the tournament?
I mean,
Yes.
I think they said he was there for 10,000 years. He definitely did a kill run.
1,000 years?
Yeah.
So, how many can get 40 suicides by cop?
Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Look, Liam has expressed something that's been rattling around in my brain a little bit, which is
I like it.
how can players tell the difference between a regular obstacle and a flashback obstacle like GM? Normally, it's completely Schrodinger's box, but obstacles anyway, you don't know what is pre-planned and which isn't. I think that's true, and I think that's like a really key thing that we've got to figure out about making this concept satisfying.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about is a series of Deus Ex Machinas and anti-Deus Ex Machinas, which, like, from a play point of view, can be deeply frustrating. And it really comes down to the GM having a really good sense of what's going to piss people off and what's not.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, I kind of disagree completely with the premise of what Liam's saying, in the sense, and this is just my own perspective because everyone plays D&D differently. But I don't think there should be a difference between what you make up on the spot and what you've planned. They're all obstacles. Anything that stops the players from achieving the objective, whether I came up with it immediately or I wrote it down in my book, the obstacles.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
There's no difference once you play the game. There's no difference. So any of them, there's not. It's not like there are some things that they can spend tokens. They can spend tokens to stop anything.
But I think his point is that if you can, there is a difference between something that you planned or improvised or whatever, and something that can only happen when a jar is depleted.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It has to be much worse.
It has to be much worse, and it has to be some other element to it because like there's nothing in a regular game for you being like, oh, by the way, the locks were electrified. Ha.
No. It comes down to a DM having a good sense of scale.
Yeah.
You're right,
Yeah.
because a bad DM can you actually
You don't need tokens. You don't need a token system for that.
It's about you. What you're saying. It's. I mean, so much of DMing isn't actually about the mechanics, and it's about reading the room. But it's actually going. I let them bypass this much stuff. What is a satisfying new wrinkle? And then saying, because you did all of this, this is the new wrinkle.
This is what happened a week ago.
Yeah. And that is a big call on the DM.
I think that's a big part of it, right? Like the difference between it's almost like a superficial difference, but I think it's a useful one. Rather than be like, well, guess what? There's a huge fucking orc in your way now, and you have to fight them. You always have to phrase your GM Deus or your player Deus as, well, a couple of days ago this happened. I think that's what separates it from a regular obstacle. Like you root it in something that has already happened and happened as a result of something else. And then maybe that's an interesting way to kind of differentiate
So you know how you
it.
went into town and you told these guys that you were coming to check the pipes?
Yeah.
They ran a background check and they worked out who you were.
Yeah.
And they've been waiting because this is an ambush.
Yeah.
And the moment you go into the pipe room, 6 guys with submachine guns and the hacker show up and they're like, get your hands off my wife.
Yeah. But so yeah.
I was just going to say that devil's advocate, potentially, in the interest of keeping it as simple as possible, if it was going to be a one-shot, that maybe the token system may complicate it a bit more, and it should potentially be at the DM's discretion.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Only because if you're having the flashbacks and stuff, it's kind of like, I feel like there's too many ways to gamify, like, running out of tokens or not running out of tokens.
Well, there's a really sneaky version of the same system, which I've seen before, and I think I used once, possibly even in a Beef Babes thing, which is you do exactly what I said before, but nobody else. But the jar in the center is opaque.
Oh,
And at the beginning
okay.
of it, you roll 2 dice, and then you put a certain amount of
Yeah,
tokens.
I played that game. I played that Beef Babes. I can't remember what it was.
And the trick of it, this is now shop talk, but the trick of it is that you have much more control on when the jar is empty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's so scary to take tokens out because eventually it will beg a belief that there are any more tokens still in it.
Yeah.
But you can, as a DM, you can make it theatrical and you can make it happen at the right moment.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk quickly about the hacker.
Okay.
So if you want to go down that path, what's your way in there?
So I think that the interesting thing about a hacker, so all of these things I think are interesting looking in the context of a church, which is that why has a person who is very religious become interested in hacking? So it's an outlet that...
So this is, by the way, very early. This is almost like Freaking, if we're doing it
in the 60s. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that they're like somebody who has poured all of their interest into hacking because actually they would be a very good hacker, but because they cannot see a future for themselves outside the church, they've turned it all into security for the church.
Okay.
And they actually have a massive personality flaw, which is that they have this inquisitiveness and a yearning to be free of the structures of the church that is very easy to manipulate if you can get to them. But they are channeling at the moment. The church has successfully gotten them to channel all of this desire to be out there in a William Gibson way. And
So do we, is the idea, I mean, one approach there is to just find this person, con them or trick them or seduce them or whatever.
just tell them they don't need to be
Into just shutting down the security systems for a couple of hours or half an hour. Like, that's
Yeah.
one way in. Is there another thing where you can get something from them? Like, we have the basic floor plan from our ex-cultist of where everything is and how most things work, but there's like probably an opaque, as you say, like vent system or like that you'd need to get from the Black Hat hacker.
Yeah.
Is there something that like...
There's also probably an anti-technology way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe the vents is a bit that, but it's like if you go by a way that doesn't involve technology, you're blind to technology.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that, like, in a way comes out of left field. And you're like, well,
And I think we
use a
know-
big gun.
We think we know that our little guy is held on a floor, but we don't know where he is.
Yeah.
And this is me playing it, not actually making it. But I thought just then a fun way of finding him is just to like go to the floor that you know he's on and just start rolling dice. And like
Yeah.
try to roll a series of like, you know, even just like casino dice. Like try and roll.
Yahtzee.
Yeah. And the worse you do, the closer you are.
Fuck, that's funny. Yeah.
You're getting warmer and warmer as you get closer and closer to
That's
him.
really good.
Were
It's
there
an interesting-
pneumatic tubes in the 60s?
Yeah,
Yes,
big
and
time.
and perfect. They're Brazil and
Little
stuff.
guy in a tube.
Oh! When you get close, they start sending him to different
Get him
levels
away
through
from
the
you.
tube.
That's good. That means you don't have to carry him out. Okay, so there's a tube system, there's a
eyeballs
ventilation
come out of his
system, there's, I'm just trying to think of ways, paths that people can take. There's like, just get there, and that's a social engineering way, right? Like, just
Yeah.
get in a room with him.
Yeah.
And that could be because you pretend to be a high roller and you need your luck to change. That could be...
Where do they keep? Sorry, the question I think you're getting close to is where do they keep him when he's not working?
yeah, the 13th floor in one of the...
In a tiny house.
His little castle.
Yeah, he's got a little castle, but nobody knows where. Like even like not the colonel. Probably the colonel does. The hacker.
It's full of...
Demi knows.
I know, it's
because she
full
wants
of-
to stay away from it.
Yeah, and it's full of four-leaf clovers, so I can go near him. It doesn't fucking matter. And I'm gonna go taunt him and be like, "You're so little," and I'm like Reglia-sized almost.
So he hates you regularly?
He hates me. Yeah, Reglia. You've heard me say it before, and I can't help it. But I'm like, there's 4-leaf clovers, and also there's I cut off all this rabbit's feet, and so
So you like cover yourself in good luck charms.
I'm covered in good luck charms. So when I go in there and I'm like, you're little, he's like, aw, and I don't get any bad luck.
I reckon you still.
And then you roll a dice, get a 6, give him 2 fingers, and walk out.
Motherfucker!
But I reckon you still like hit yourself. Like,
I do
your
hit
head
the
on
back of my
wall.
head because it's not his luck is so strong.
Yeah. That's really good, and I think that like, does he have anybody guarding him? Probably, and there would be a nice way to be able to get past them without killing them, or.
I suppose so, but how far away do they have to be? And also, how clued in are they about the luck? And are they? This is the thing that I'm getting stuck in the weeds with, is because are you telling them you need to let this guy escape so that their luck is so bad that they keep him in? Or is it that they're far enough away that they're not unlucky?
I like the idea that nobody really knows what.
I'm thinking too hard about it. It's not relevant.
There might be a
but
thing like control. Like there might be a thing where it's like they've developed anti-luck suits.
Yeah.
Which is fun because if you have these anti-luck suits, which could just be, as they say, rabbit foot nipple tassels.
Yes.
If you have anti-luck suits that some minders wear, that's a thing that the adventurers could steal.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool.
You can take advantage.
I reckon we can maybe have best of both worlds and like have them have to wear these suits but not know why.
That's cool. I like that a lot,
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that the players it can be kind of obvious what they are by how they look. Because they do have like
rabbit foot,
nipple tassels, 4-leaf clovers.
Nipple tassels,
The collar is like a horseshoe.
Yes.
I think
lucky.
They've got a little TV that's just playing that. You ought to buy a lottery ticket out.
That's cool. So,
and like there's always like a bird flying above you that's just shitting its brains out because that's lucky.
I think everyone on the 13th floor is wearing these.
Yeah.
And I think that
I only just realised why it's the 13th.
I hadn't yet realised why it was the 13th.
Can I tell you something funny? I hadn't realised it until like 5 seconds after I said it.
Oh my god. I thought I was picking up on something. That's so fucked. I can't believe that.
But like I said it for a reason. I just wasn't conscious of it.
Yeah.
Which is frightening.
Yeah.
I need more sleep.
Do a flashback and you tell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Fucking
cool.
hell.
That I think it's like, but also like the suits aren't completely foolproof. So I think that combat on the 13th floor is really funny because everybody is like kind of a weird klutz, and everybody has exceptionally bad luck.
Someone with good animal handling could just make like 100 black cats appear or some shit.
I also think
A weird issue with D&D, which I'll say, which is just a mechanical issue, is that a roll that is a failure that is not a 1 is uninteresting because it just slows the combat down.
yes, that's true.
But a 1 is super cool. So maybe you need a mechanical system which increases your chances of rolling a 1 as opposed to just increases...
Just rolling poorly.
Yeah.
Well, that was why I was saying...
Catastrophic failure.
Yeah. But that was why I was saying that the fate system makes sense for that.
What's the fate system?
It's 1 to 6, you just fail. And then 7 to 9, I think, is a partial success. 10 to 12 is a complete success. That's all it is. You get like 3 options.
Yeah, I think you can make whatever dice you're using. You can make a series of like 1 to 6 is actually a 1. That's
Yeah.
It's literally
you
just...
you just
it's-
expand the chances.
So
of
my
1.
thing of degrading dice is maybe less interesting, and maybe it's just that, you know how a 1 is a critical fail? A 1 to 5 when you're near this guy
Yeah.
It's a critical
is
fail.
a critical fail.
Yeah.
That's great, because 1 and 4 are rolls.
And that's
Yeah.
fun for a GM.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
much better.
It's much less, you miss.
Yeah.
It's more, I also like the idea, this is just colour and shade and has nothing to do with the gameplay, that like everyone who works on the 13th floor, their life is just falling apart and they don't know why. And they maybe have to like
You're
cycle.
always less interested in the game and more interested in the sketch of the game.
Yeah.
The 2 guys, like the feed sketch of the 2 guys who work on the 13th floor.
But yeah, I think that, but also as Demi says, like if you have this information and they don't, there's also a bloodless way of getting in. If
Yeah.
you can prove it to them that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing. I don't think. Yeah, this can be sorted out in the weeds, but I reckon there are certain roles that aren't affected by this guy.
Yeah.
Like I reckon persuasion might not be.
Yeah, I don't think persuasion
So there's
to
some
me...
things that you think are luck based and not. That's interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if that's.
You could do a really simple thing which you could do is that D&D is built around 6 attributes, 3 of them mental, 3 of them physical. And you could make it that all the physical attributes are affected by the guy. Constitution
That was
rolls.
what I was gonna fucking say, Dave, and that makes so much sense to me. And continue, and you finish what you were gonna say. Sorry.
It's all right. Do you want to do it?
No, you do it. But I was just
You
so
agree?
I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength rolls.
yeah,
Anything based on which is almost all combat. You will subtract anything from 1 to 5 is failure, but wisdom, charisma, and intelligence he has no effect over.
Yeah.
It's a huge nerf for fighting martial classes. It's a huge buff for spellcasters, but it's fun. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're the DM. You picked this for the mix of people so that you know what you were doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that when it's like personality based or like instinct based, I guess when it's in you, it's not. It doesn't to me. It doesn't strike me as something that luck can affect. Because you're not lucky when you have a. I mean, we can argue about this, but I don't feel like it's lucky when you have a good thought or a good instinct about something. It's just like it's,
Not when I.
So it means his luck can affect, for instance, climbing a wall,
Yeah.
jumping over something,
Yeah.
dodging a laser, but it can't affect persuading someone,
Yeah.
reading a book, or understanding that someone's following you. That
Yeah.
stuff is all instinctual.
Yes. I think that works.
Yeah.
We've got 10 minutes left. I want to just recap what we kind of decided and then...
Huge sooty tits.
Yeah, I mean that...
really, really
Yeah.
big.
No,
too.
I do have that here.
You got that there?
Yeah, no, and there as
And
well.
here as well.
We're pointing at Heart of Pack's art.
My piercing in, thank you.
It really is very good.
It is.
So good.
This rocks.
I
Okay.
just say to Pack, you can draw whatever you want.
So we open with a parent of a little guy who, and the GM can decide how much they go into, but who basically like, it's almost like they were cursed, right? Like,
Yeah.
but then they like, they discover that the child was really unlucky. They maybe like either forced him out of home or the kid left, joined this cult run by Demi Lardner,
Yes.
but not as we know her.
No, different.
Sure.
Bigger. Dirtier.
He has since tried to get his kid back and hasn't been able to. He believes his child has been brainwashed. And more than that as well, being kind of held hostage as a way of rigging this casino where it's needed for high rollers.
Can I really quickly, and I will be so, there's a tee-hee on the board now, and that makes me laugh, but really quickly, have you ever heard about this guy, and I think this is his name, he was a French guy way back in the day, and his name was Trurere, I think?
Oh, the eating rats
The
guy?
eating guy. The
Yeah.
eating guy. So this is what it's kind of relevant. So the luck guy is he makes me think of this guy who was a French guy in like the fucking 15-ish hundreds.
Olden days?
Really old times, who would just eat whatever the fuck. And his parents
It's like a stylite or something.
his parents forced him out of home because they were like he eats too much. He eats like basically the equivalent of half an entire cow a day, and we can't support him. So he went off and like became a sideshow guy. This is a real guy, and just started eating stuff. And he'd be like, "Bring stuff." Yeah.
It's like everyone.
Terreur,
But
Terreur.
the only people that are saying it is everyone who draws fan art.
Terreur, yeah,
knows
it's
who it
Terreur.
is.
So apparently he had a massive mouth. He could digest whatever the fuck, and sometimes he would just like eat live cats and stuff because that was the only thing he could do. He wasn't very intelligent. He didn't really know how things worked, and the reason that I bring it up is because he was a tool in a war when they were like, we're going to make you eat a wooden box with a secret in it and take it over enemy lines. And he ate it and then went into France, and they were like, who are you? And he was like, I don't fucking speak French, bro. And then came back, shut out the box, and was like, I don't know what you expected. So that's what I'm thinking about the small man.
You know. No.
I think he's gonna swallow a little box. No, I just think he's being used, and he doesn't really know why.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a good. I'm just glad I know that story now.
You gotta look it up, Ben. You would love it.
No, I'll call up the old Optus people and ask them to Google it for
And
me.
they can tell you about Terreur.
For whatever reason, his father knows that he's been brainwashed, wants to bring him home. He's got a lead, but he's too afraid or to just don't have the resources to go talk to this ex-cultist who lives out in a caravan in the desert. By the time our adventurers get to this ex-cultist, they see a shiny black car and 2 cultists wearing the Cult of Demi getup, which is... Okay.
Massive fake tartars.
It doesn't have to be tartars.
But is it one of those aprons with big boobs on it?
They're novelty breasts. They don't need to be an apron.
Okay.
You could have a harness.
It could just be a bra. It doesn't have to be full. It could just be a bra.
When they get very high class and they have like masquerade balls and the top of the society of this church, they just have like ones on little sticks, 2 fake breasts.
Yes.
They hold it like a masquerade ball.
Okay, beautiful. That's really great. So that's what they've got. When you get...
Or like a hair clip. If you, it seems like you were mad at me for saying it was tits, so it could be a hair clip that they have.
But can they have big tits on
The head, they
great.
do have to make it tits up there.
So they go, the guy's like, no, I'm with my friends. They have to make an insight check or whatever to realise that he's being kind of held against his will. They have a fight or they don't. And then we enter the planning stage. And whether we use tokens or not, I'm kind of leaning toward the opaque jar model of tokens. I think that's really good. I think it's like a bit more control. I think that's where we explain the system of heat and how things are going to ratchet.
Which I think is a good word for it.
And they basically have this is like they have some time to plan and they have some time to work out their approach.
It's insane that Pax's drawn that. I'm sorry, I know you... It's reaching a level of quality.
Yeah, it's so good.
And this is like a fun thing where they'll have a map. Each player will have a map of the casino, and any other information is going to cost them tokens, and then it plays out. So there's basically 2 acts to this thing. There's the planning, which is like maybe 1/3 of it, and then you play it out with the 2. And
that's good because it's like so there's we're not actually doing in the end at all. Or can you still do the thing once it happens? Can you do flashbacks? But you're still taking tokens.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Do you take tokens before the heist and during the heist?
I think so. And
maybe
I think
you have a thing where it costs twice as many tokens during the heist as it would have cost.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that exchange rate's good. When you get to Little Man, it's like this weird combat thing where everybody's a klutz, so it's like you sort of want to use social skills.
Yeah.
And then you pop him in a tube. And
you don't know where he goes.
And he thinks his way to freedom.
Perhaps an adventure for another day. Any tube. Any tube.
Incinerator.
That's also the great ending to every heist when it just sort of doesn't work out the way you expect it as well. Like someone else gets the treasure.
Yeah.
You just assumed you knew where the tubes were.
But I'm so glad that you made it pneumatic tubes because they're so satisfying.
And as Gordy Knott points out, a heat measure is also that Michael Mann film, which is sort of a heisty movie.
Don't know what you're talking about.
It's Al Pacino and Robert De Niro sharing the screen for the very first time.
Ooh!
Yeah. They were in The Godfather Part 2 together, but never in the same scene.
And this is the 4th time that we've done Monster Pitch Theatre. How do you feel about the format?
I like talking to my friends.